we had a bonfire for burning our secular CDs as an evangelical teenager, and then things got weird. Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. Okay, so back in the 1990s, there was this huge deal made of secular music versus Christian music, and there were these videos. One of them was called Hell's Bells. I don't know if you watched any of these videos, but they talked about the evils of secular music, and they talked about all of these crazy lyrics and the horrible things that these secular bands would do, and how they were worshiping the devil and all kinds of stuff like that. And it was like shown to your youth group, or you could rent it from a Christian bookstore, or if you were like me, you could get a lot of them, get your friends together, make a supercut, and go church to church convincing people to burn their CDs. That's what we did. It was like a supercut of all of the worst parts of all of these videos that were just touting the horrors of secular music. And we would go, our three teenagers together to a youth group. We'd come, we'd show you the videos, and then we would invite you to come or to host a party where you brought your secular CDs and you burned them. Because the whole thing was that they were leading you astray. They were leading you away from God. And what you needed to do was burn those CDs and replace them with like Christian alternative versions. It's like instead of sugar, using stevia or equal. But let's get back to the story. We do the thing. We have the presentation at the youth group, and we invite everybody over to my friend's house, and we're going to burn all of these CDs in a bonfire. We start the fire, we are burning the CDs, and we are talking about God and Jesus and about good Christian bands that are alternatives for each of these different artists and all of that kind of stuff. And then it takes a turn, at least for me. One of the guys actually lived close by. He goes into his house and he gets a bunch of books. And they were just novels. And he brings the books out and starts putting the books in the fire. And I mean, I knew from history class, but also from Indiana Jones, that was something that historically was not associated with the best groups. And I immediately was like, what have I done? And I'm not here to talk about the difference in artistic expression between sacred and secular music. I don't think that's anything that really matters to me, but I do want to talk about how three teenagers got to a place where they were encouraging people to burn things, and some of those things ended up being books. And the surface level problem, the one that sort of comes to mind first, is that there was this us versus them mentality. There was this idea that the people who were Christian and people who were not Christian couldn't possibly be on the same team, right? That you couldn't possibly have even music that was shared between people who were Christian and people who were not Christian, because you either were going to heaven or you were going to hell. You either were going to spend eternity with Jesus or eternity in eternal conscious punishment. And there was no gray area. There was no in between. There was no grace or love. It was just us versus them. And so every single decision, every single choice, every single issue boiled down to heaven or hell. I mean, literally down to the music that you listen to. It was a determining factor in your eternity. But I think the bigger problem, maybe the most insidious problem, was the way that the people who had authority held on to authority. They did that by limiting access to information and demonizing asking questions and pushing back on teachings of other religious people, of people in authority. Because if you can't question what the pastor says or what the Christian video says, then you ultimately have to just take everything that they say or take nothing. Because as soon as you questioned it, as soon as you pushed back, there was a pushback against you out of the community. And I was part of that problem. When people wouldn't burn their CDs, I would really push on them to do that because, it was posed as a life or death, eternal punishment kind of issue. And when they didn't, you had this sort of idea in the back of your head is like, well, maybe they will lead me astray. Like maybe them listening to secular music, in spite of knowing the facts that it's going to cause them to go to hell, maybe that will cause me to be led astray. And so you would talk less to them. I would talk less to them. And while I was being traumatized in some of those moments by this religious expression, I was also traumatizing others. And that's something that evangelical people, especially those who have deconstructed, who have come out of it, especially those who were involved in these sort of youth ministries or evangelistic campaigns, that's something that we all have to live with. And it's hard sometimes. So if you were one of the people who was told to burn your CDs and you didn't, I'm sorry. Sorry for that personally. Sorry if I was the person who said that to you. And if you're a person that was in that world and was sort of propagating that system and now you have come out of it, give yourself some grace, take a deep breath, and chart a different course.